guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Paige and this is my open book. It's time for a January wrap up. So grab a drink and grab a snack and let's get into the 15-ish books that I read in the month of January. So if you were here for my January TBR video, you know that my goal for January was to finish as many series as I could. I mean, I'm in the middle of like 70 series right now, but we're not gonna talk about that. I made a list of 20 series that I only had one book left to be caught up and to finish the series. So my goal was to finish as many of those as I could, and I only have a couple left that I haven't finished. Let me look actually. I only have 5 left. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. So I did pretty good. Pretty much almost every book I read this month was for this challenge. So I consider that a win, a victory for sure. I feel like it was a really good reading month as well. So let's get into it. Okay, first I read Finding Haze by Laura Pavlov. This was the last book in her Magnolia Falls series, which I was pleasantly surprised. This was a 4-star. If you've been around this channel, this series has been like up and down for me. Loving Romeo book 1 was one of my favorite books of all time. The ones in the middle were kind of meh, but I feel like the last 2 books have been really, really good. This one was a marriage of convenience, friends to enemies to lovers, and you know, small town. He's a firefighter and she does interior design, and she's coming back to the small town because kind of like her Suedo grandparents, one of them has passed and left the family home to her, so she's kind of like taking care of the estate and everything, and she's supposed to be redoing the house to sell it. And then the main character was her childhood friend, but they had some kind of falling out when she left the small town years ago. So there's some bad blood there, but he is trying to be the fire chief, and he thinks that if he, you know, shows that he's like a family man, then he will be favored for that position. She also needs to get married in order to get the inheritance from the Suedo grandparents. So they enter a marriage of convenience. And this one was a really, really good time. Is this the most memorable? No. So like it's not a 5-star, but it was pretty solid. I gave it a 4-star. I love when the characters have history together, so I love that part. We love a small town. So it definitely had a lot of great things. It checked a lot of boxes, but I don't know if it's like the most memorable thing in the world. Then I went into The Birthday List by Devney Perry. This was a 5-star. I totally understand the hype from Katie now. We read the second book, Letters to Molly, for book club last year, and I was not a fan. I was not a fan. Even though it was my favorite tropes, Second Chance, Marriage in Trouble, but I did not like that book at all. But this one was way better. At the beginning, I thought it was going to be another dud, because in this one, the female main character, her husband dies tragically. He's murdered. The male main character is the cop who comes to give her the bad news. Now, the romance actually takes place 5 years later, so there is like a time jump. And the premise of The Birthday List is her deceased husband had a list of all the things that he wanted to do, kind of like a bucket list, but he called it a birthday list. For every birthday he would, you know, have certain things that he would want to do before the next birthday. And she is trying to kind of like get closure from that relationship by doing this list. And the moment character kind of like enters her life again as she's doing some of these tasks, and he helps her get through them. Now, this was really hard for me because as someone who's in a happy, loving marriage, like the thought of losing my husband and then being with somebody else, just like my brain cannot compute how that would work. But I think that Devney Perry did it really well. She definitely had me a believer by the end of the book. I was crying. I was so emotionally invested. 5-star for sure. Okay, then I finally read Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros, because the new book did come out, Onyx Storm. Haven't read that yet, but I've seen good things. Anyway, I wanted to put off reading this until it was closer to the next book because I didn't want to wait as long as everybody else did. And I really liked this. What did I actually rate it? I feel like I still gave it 5 stars, didn't I? Okay, 4.5. Because it was still really good, but there were definitely some slower parts kind of sprinkled in the middle. But I mean, when you have a romantasy, it's expected that there are going to be some parts where you like really have to commit to the world building to really understand like where the author's going to take everything. So I understood why she added more to it, but there were still some parts that were like hard to get through because they were a little bit on the slower side. Just because Fourth Wing I feel like was so fast paced, so that was a little bit of a difference there. But it's still a great world. I'm so excited to see what happens in book 3. Like, she definitely has me hooked. So I'm a fan. I'm a stan. I tandem read this with the graphic audio. There was a lot of debate about the graphic audios online. People do not like them. I personally don't mind it as long as I'm reading the physical copy along with it, just because sometimes the graphic audios do take out little details here or there, but I personally don't think it takes away anything from the plot. I think you're fine. So I used the graphic audio to do my reread of Fourth Wing in December. I did it to tandem read this in January. I'm probably not going to use it for Onyx Storm because it's not out yet, I'm pretty sure. So Onyx Storm, I'm just going to raw dog it, but it's fine. So 4.5 star. I am still loving this series. Okay, then I read some hockey romances back to back on my Kindle. I read One Baby Daddy by Megan Quinn. This is an old series by her that I realized I never finished because while it's still not my favorite trope, I used to like avoid the pregnancy trope. Like if I knew something had the pregnancy trope in it, I just wouldn't read it. So even though back in the day I was reading a lot of Megan Quinn's backlist, I skipped this one. But I wanted to close it out because now I'm kind of more open to the pregnancy trope because I have read some books that do it right. And honestly, this was one of them. Apparently I gave it 5 stars. I think that was a little bit generous because I don't really remember as much as I thought that I would. So I'm probably going to change that to a 4 star. Because it was really solid and I thought the characters were really good. This was super angsty. Like the part when she finds out she's pregnant and then I guess we'll call it like the 3rd act conflict, but it almost felt like a 2nd act conflict because I think it happened like halfway in the book instead of later. So you get a lot of time where he has to grovel, and like I said, there's like a little love triangle side plot as well, which I found, you know, a really cool twist that I wasn't expecting from this. And yeah, it was really, really good. Maybe I'll change it to like a 4.5 star because now that I'm like thinking of the details again, like this definitely stands out as a pregnancy trope and as like a hockey romance. I feel like it definitely stands out. And then I realized there was a novella in this series that I never read called Back in the Game, so I knocked that out. That way I could fully complete the series since that was the goal for January. I gave this 3.5 stars. Again, really solid. It was a novella, so I feel like it was lacking a little bit of like story and plot and development, but I mean, I get it. I'm not gonna be super picky. But it was still really cute. The banter and like the character dynamics between these two were really good. The male main character is a single dad, and the female main character is a kindergarten teacher, I'm pretty sure. So it was a fun time. Then I went into Slapshot Surprise by Melanie Harlow, which is another hockey romance with the accidental pregnancy. So reading these back to back, I was a little worried. This one definitely wasn't as good as the Megan Quinn one. I still preferred that one. That's probably why I gave the Megan Quinn one 5 stars, because I gave Slapshot Surprise 4 stars. So probably because I read them back to back, One Baby Daddy felt at a higher caliber, so that's why I probably gave that one 5 stars and this one 4 stars. But this one had an interesting start where they're both on a plane together and she's like super fearful of the turbulence and everything that's happening on the plane, so she's just like word vomiting and like confessing all these things because she thinks she's gonna die. And even though he's a complete stranger, so she doesn't realize he's a hockey player, and they're actually both going to the same wedding. So they end up seeing each other in real life, and she's like, whoa, like I never thought I'd see you again. They have a one-night stand, and then we know what happens after that. This one also had some good angst in it because the male main character did not think he would ever want kids. So like that whole dynamic I thought was really interesting, like him trying to like come to terms with his feelings and like how is he gonna be a dad, but he also like really wants to be there for her. So this one was really good. Then I finished the Hot and Hammered series by Tessa Bailey with Tools of Engagement. This was great. This was a 5-star read. The male main character, he is taking care of his sister's daughter, or his niece, I should say. So he's kind of like had to step up. Before that, he was kind of like a drifter, bull rider kind of guy who didn't really have responsibilities or take things seriously, but now he really wants to make a good life for his niece and he wants to plant roots. And the female main character, she is definitely a perfectionist and a control freak, and she is trying to do her own house flip because that's what her family does, and normally she just does the interior design, and they haven't let her take on like a larger scale project, so she's gonna go on and do her own thing, and Wes is gonna help her do it. Now these characters have had like kind of like hate to love banter in the other books, so I was definitely anticipating their romance and I was not disappointed. This was a 5-star. Tessa Bailey, she is my ride or die. Like if I could only read one author for the rest of my life, Tessa Bailey would definitely be up there in the running because her books get me every time. They get me every time. I don't know what she puts in here, but it's perfect. every time. Then another hockey romance I listened to, So This Is War by Megan Quinn. So this is a full cast audiobook, so it was definitely entertaining. I gave it a 3.5 star though, because there were a lot of parts in this book where I was not happy with how the characters were behaving. It's kind of been a theme in this series that sometimes rubs me the wrong way, where it's kind of like the characters are like doing pranks against each other or like plotting against each other with their friends, and it just feels very like high school, even though they're all adults and they're like professional hockey players and they have like big girl and big boy jobs, and they're I don't know, some of it reads a little bit high school when it's like, oh, let's plot this trick to try and get him to sleep with you, and let's plot this trick to try and get her to spill the beans about this. Like, I don't know, some of those things rubbed me the wrong way, so it wasn't as successful as some of her older books in my opinion, but it was still entertaining. And by the end I feel like it got better once some of the immaturity wore off. So 3.5 star it is. Then I read, oh, this is my first 6-star book of the year, you guys. Are you ready? Tide by Carrie Ann Cole. I made a Pinterest board for this book because I really want to do a journal spread for it. That's my goal, is to do a journal spread for every 6-star read that I have this year, and this is going to be the first one. So the female character, she was abducted when she was 5 years old, and she's been held captive, what is it, for like 11 years. She's been held captive by a terrible man. The male main character is actually the one who rescues her, but he's kind of like a recluse in the small town because of things from his past that you learn as the story goes on. So they actually think that he's the one who is holding her captive, so there's drama there. She goes into a mental health facility, kind of like a halfway house. Her family honestly is like not prepared for how to deal with her, for lack of a better term. So she has to go in this like little halfway house situation to try and like rehabilitate and get back to normal life after being held captive for 11 years. So this was super emotional, great mental health representation. Both characters have such dark things that have happened to them in the past, and the way that they're able to find healing in each other and to find like safety in each other, I think is really empowering. Like, just to see how, you know, like how powerful love can be, you know what I mean? I honestly want to read it again already, and it hasn't even been like, what, I think it's only been like 2 weeks since I've read it, 3 weeks maybe. I already want to reread it. Like, that's how you know it's 6-star material. Then I read Sink or Swim, another solid Tessa Bailey read, 5 stars. This one does the childhood friends to lovers, and the female main character is of Indian descent, so her parents are trying to set up an arranged marriage for her. And the male main character, he thinks that he's not good enough for her because of something bad that he's done in his past. This book kind of gave me A.L. Jackson vibes, because A.L. Jackson always does that with her romances, where the male main character has done something bad, so he thinks he's not good enough, so he like, it's kind of like a self-tortured hero. He's the oldest brother, so he's always like the responsible one who's kind of like held the burden of the family. This is the 3rd book in the series, so you kind of get more about like what their childhood was like in the other 2 books as well. But he's kind of had to get him and his brothers into a better situation. They own a business that they're trying to keep afloat, but he is so smitten for her and head over heels for her. He does little things without her even knowing. And if you love acts of service, this is your guy. This is your guy. And their sexual dynamic was also very interesting and unique. I've never read one like that before. Yeah, this is just good old Tessa Bailey. I'm telling you, you won't find better dirty talk than a Tessa Bailey book. I'm just saying. All right, then I read Chase Our Forever by Kat Singleton. This was the 3rd book in the Sutton Mountain series. This was a single dad nanny trope. I thought it was so forgettable and bland. That sounds really mean, but like, there was nothing wrong with it. It was just so like normal and regular. There was no drama, there was no tension, there was no angst. It was just a single dad nanny. Like, I've read so many other ones that are better. This one I feel like brought nothing new to the table, sorry to say. So like, it was cute, small town I guess, but I don't know, nothing stood out about it whatsoever. It's a 2.5 star rating. Oh, then I read Madame by Sarah Kate. This was a 5 star. This is like on Homewrecker level. The book that was in her other series, I can't remember what it's called, The Good Brothers, I think. So this is the last book in her Salacious Players Club series, and this is about the female dom who has kind of been the kind of like inspiration for a lot of the characters in the other books. She works at the sex club, and she's kind of like an icon for a lot of the female main characters, and for those that are learning to be doms at this club, they kind of go to her for advice. She helps a lot of people with her services and things like that. So getting her backstory was crazy. Like, you find out she's a single mom and she escaped kind of like a dark past. I was not expecting that. That was so cool, because I kind of went into this blind. And then there's this male main character who she had as a client in the past, but they had some kind of falling out because they caught feelings. He's with a new girlfriend, and she finds out that he was in this dom sub relationship with Madame. So she's kind of like curious about it, and it goes from there. This was so good. This was so good. I think that was the best way to end the series, and I want more. She's doing a second gen, and she kind of teased that with the son of this female main character, so that'll be kind of cool. We'll see. Then I finished the Markham Hall series by Sierra Simone. I had these on audio, so I read The Seduction of Molly O'Flaherty and The Wedding of Molly O'Flaherty. This is another one where the female main character is kind of like an inspiration to the female main character in the last books. You think that she's like badass, strong, FMC, right? Like nothing can affect her, but then you realize that she has some trauma in her past that she's dealing with, and that she's kind of like showing how vulnerable she is. And it's a friends to lovers, it's a marriage of convenience, kind of. And we all know Sierra Simone is the queen of kink, so there's also plenty of that in here as well. This was really good. I liked this better than the other books in the series about the other characters. I liked Molly and Silas way better than the other ones. So this first one was the first one, The Seduction of Molly O'Flaherty. I gave that a 4-star. And again, I feel like the second book wasn't really necessary. It probably could have been 2 books. I don't know. So I just gave that one like 3.5, because like it was good, but I still felt like it was basically just dragging the story out to have 2 books. You know what I mean? So do with that what you will. Then I finally finished this series by Scarlett St. Clair, A Touch of Chaos. This was so filled with action. Okay, and I think that it was a good resolution to the series, right? But I'm not gonna lie to you, it was really hard for me to read. I gave it like a 3.5 star. I skimmed so much of it because I just felt like it was just like a lot of fight scenes, and a lot of them just like talking about the terrible situation that they're in, how they're gonna get out of it. And I really just like wanted to see how it ended, and that was it. Like, I feel like it was way too long. That was just me personally, but again, I've been wanting to finish the series for a really long time, so that could just be a personal thing because I put it off for so long. I was just like over it. I don't know, but this is not my favorite of the series. I think the other books are better, but we did need a resolution, and she gave us that. There was a lot of action in here. Definitely not necessarily like kind of a happy ending, but there are some deaths, so yeah, this was a doozy. It was a doozy. And all that's left is I read Fight by Sloane St. James. This was part of the Skyridge Hotshot series, and this is my book club pick with Katie, so I'll leave that linked up above so you can see my thoughts, because spoiler alert, it was not my favorite. There were a lot of red flags that I was not a fan of. So watch the live show if you want to see more. Katie liked it though, so there's still hope. Like I said, you can watch the live show to get our full thoughts, but that's gonna be it for this wrap-up video. Give this video a like, leave a comment down below telling me your favorite book that you read in the month of January, and be sure to hit subscribe so you can see what I get up to in February. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.